Welcome to Ask Rich and Ed from Procurement Says No. We get a lot of listener questions, which we love to answer with insightful views and advice. Now we've created a whole new way of listening to Ask Rich and Ed with bite-sized mini podcasts full of useful answers to your questions.
Ooh, nice. Bite-sized chunks.
Let's see what questions we've got this time, Ed.
Well, Rich, will they be fatuous,
Or
fatuous, or fatuous, or inane? Let's make it real.
Boom. It's time for Ask Rich and Ed, and we have got we've got loads of questions from our listeners in the post bag. Question D. What is the best way to define savings? My finance department doesn't accept cost avoidance. And that's from Surav Osman in Dhaka in Bangladesh.
This is a big problem. Okay, this is at the heart of why finance, in a lot of cases, don't believe procurement and their numbers. Until you've been around procurement for a while, you don't necessarily see it. I'm in procurement, I've made this big deal, I've saved loads of money, brilliant, the business will be bending over backwards to thank me. The issue for finance is they generally don't see those savings come through to the bottom line because they get spent. So you do a deal, you make your IT desktop environment cost 10% less. What happens is IT folk and others in the business spend up to their budgets. So finance never sees the benefit, therefore they don't believe the numbers.
They don't see it.
So is it a surprise that your finance department doesn't accept cost avoidance? Whatever we might think, the only real saving is a saving that gets through to the bottom line, and then the budget is reduced.
Yeah, well, I've written, savings against budget or against last price paid. They're very clear. Or against a midpoint of tender responses. Sometimes people do that. Or against a benchmark, but that might be from the Cheetah Institute, so who knows? But usually it's against some inflated CPI-based made-up number, isn't it? My view, though, is that cost avoidance should count. Certainly, it should count from a procurement perspective. I know, and I understand completely why finance would say, but I don't see it. You should count it at least in the procurement numbers, because if you don't, would that suggest that anything which has got cost avoidance should be deprioritized from a procurement perspective? And I think if you deprioritize things because they're cost avoidance, then you're going to get into a lot of trouble, aren't you?
Defo, you're absolutely right. I think the question was, what is the best way to define savings? The true way to define a saving is it gets to the bottom line and profit is enhanced by the change. Cost avoidance and all the other savings methods that you mentioned, Rich, they're softer measures. They're sort of local performance to give credit to procurement people, to make them feel enthused about what they're doing and to encourage them to make savings. But the only true saving is one that hits the bottom line in my book.
Do you want to do the next one? E?
Yeah, this is question E. So, Rich, would you recommend procurement as a career for my daughter who's in her final year at university? And why would you recommend it as a career? This is from Anniken Olsen in Norway.
Oh, hell yes. Actually, there was a great post on LinkedIn from Procurement Tactics the other week showing a woman, did you see this? Showing a woman getting stuck in a garage. She was walking past a garage and the garage door was coming down and she got locked into the garage. And it said, this is how you start your career in procurement. I thought that was very good. And there's actually a stat from the Cheetah Institute here, Eduardo. Yeah. 97% of procurement professionals have found themselves stuck in that garage.
Well, all together, all at once in that one garage?
All together in one big...
Oh, it must get a bit cosy in there.
One big garage. But I've thoroughly enjoyed my time in my many, many long years in procurement. And I think it can be a great role. You get to see all different aspects of a business, especially if you're buying indirects, strategic consulting or buying premises or fitting out factories. And then if you're buying direct, components, they're getting into R&D and engineering and seeing how products work from, my experience, from cars to chocolate bars and everything in between. I would thoroughly recommend it.
Ooh, super. I would second that. Rich, I've loved my time in procurement. It's been great fun. And I got stuck in that garage too. Just fell into it.
So there you go, Anakin.
Yes. Your daughter should do it because it's good fun.
Question F. I'm head of procurement at a local council in the UK and have been for 21 years. What should be my next career move? And that is from Anonymous of Large Council in England.
Get out now! Leave! Go to the private sector! It's much better!
I just put retire.
having touched on the public sector and worked predominantly in the private sector, I think the strictures of the public sector make it very challenging. There's lots of bureaucracy and things are slow. Whereas in the private sector, if you go into a fast-paced environment like in FMCG, for example, I think you can have a ball. I think it can be great fun. I'd have a look at the private sector. There's lots of things public sector procurement experts can bring to the private sector. Structure and ensuring compliance, etc., following a rigorous process in procurement. I think they can bring a lot to the private sector. But yeah, I'd get out. I'd go into a different sector. Defo.
Yeah.
Do something different.
Good.
Variety is the spice of life.
It is.
Last one, you, Rich. This is a poison chalice question. Which of the big four consultancies is best? This is from Ernest Winnie in London.
Well,
Central London. So he's clearly must be working for one big consultancies if he can afford to live in a house in Central London.
I think the clue's in the name. We were both at PwC, just full disclosure. But it was actually when it was Waterhouse and Scrooge, wasn't it? Back in the 18th century. Funnily enough, I was just looking at the FT, and we have to say this is from the FT, otherwise they get very upset. They have just said a thing about the big four. And they said KPMG is the laggard of the big four with the slowest growth in global sales. It's also the smallest of the big four with revenues of a measly 36.4 billion and a growth of only 8%, whereas Deloitte, EY and PwC have all reported double-digit revenue growth. KPMG's had a few problems over the last few years. 36 billion versus EY at 50 billion versus PwC at 53 billion and Deloitte at 65 billion. So according to the size, that would suggest Deloitte's the best. My time at PwC and EY, at the time, I thought definitely PwC was better than EY. When I jumped ship to EY, I thought, PwC was a better organisation. But that was 20 odd years ago.
I think Pricewaterhouse, when we were there, stood for probing and waterboarding. Yeah. It's. I'm sure it's changed though, isn't it? It must be since our time there in the 90s and early part of the millennium. It must be a little different. They're all the same, aren't they?
Oh, what?
Aren't they all the same? Methodologies are the same. They steal the methodologies from each other, steal staff from each other. Aren't they pretty similar? It's just the cultures are marginally different, aren't they? So
no real clarity of answer on that. They're all the big four. They're big, and there's four of them. That's all the questions from this time. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.